Welcome to Cisco Tech Beat, the podcast that explores the people and stories behind what inspires the newest innovation. I'm your host, AB, and today I'm thrilled to welcome not one, but two fantastic guests. Wawira Njiru, founder and CEO, Food for Education, a nonprofit based in Kenya, and Brian Tippens, Cisco's SVP and Chief Social Impact and Inclusion Officer. Wawira, Brian, welcome to Tech Beat.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
So glad to have you both here. I know we're on 3 different continents here, so I'm amazed and thrilled that we made this work. Wawira, I would love to begin with you because I want to talk about your incredible organization, Food for Education. What inspired you to start it? What is its mission? And how does Food for Education aim to impact the communities it serves?
What a great question to start with. And thank you so much for having me. And also, on this podcast that I think would not have been made possible without technology, being in 3 different continents. So very exciting to be here to speak to Brian and to speak to you about the work that we're doing here in Kenya and how we've worked with Cisco and different other organizations to scale our work. So we're simply solving a very, very old problem, which is hunger, which we all grew up sort of talking about. But we're solving it in a way that is sustainable, in a way that uses technology, and in a way that addresses those who need it the most, who are children. So we provide school lunches to kids in public schools here in Kenya, close to 500,000 kids today. But we didn't start off with 500,000 kids. We started with just 25 kids, providing them with lunch every single day. I'm a nutritionist by training, and I continue to be so passionate about the power of food and the power of enabling, especially children, to access nutritious food. So I was doing my undergrad. I went to Australia. I'm Kenyan born and bred, but I went to Australia for my undergrad. And while I was there, I was figuring out what do I do with my life, and a school feeding program was very much needed in the community that I grew up in. And I thought, let me start solving that problem. So started with 25 children, and since then have used technology and we've used innovation to now reach close to 500,000 kids every single day.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. That scaling is just unbelievable. And Brian, so I kind of want to look at the vulnerabilities in terms of the communities that, what we were serving, for example, because we know that historically underserved communities around the globe have the fewest resources in many cases, which is caused by a lot of factors, economic disparities, lack of infrastructure, and other barriers. I would love for you to share your thoughts on how Cisco is working hard to advance social impact across these global communities.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'd say it's quite extensive. Our commitment to social impact, social justice runs deep. We just celebrate our 40th anniversary as a company. And since the founding, it's been core to how we operate to be a big contributor in the communities where we live and work around the globe, whether it's directly or through the work of our Cisco Foundation. And so it's quite extensive. It goes to the core of the technology that we provide. Just basic networking connectivity that Cisco enables helps to foster inclusive networking infrastructure to ensure that everyone, really regardless of social economic background, can access critical digital resources. I mentioned the work of the Cisco Foundation, where we provide social impact grants to organizations like Food for Education, but it's quite broad. We invest around 4 primary focus areas around crisis response, around education, economic empowerment, and climate regeneration. And so these grants are crucial to us establishing this network of partners around the globe because we can't do it by ourselves. And so we work with partners like Food for Education really everywhere around the globe. It's also part of our Cisco Networking Academy, which you may be familiar with. It's a functionality, a capability that's existed for over 25 years in Cisco. Initially, it was created to provide networking skills development and certifications because that was good for the business to have more Cisco certified network engineers and professionals out there. But we quickly learned that it could be good for the business, but also good for the world and help underrepresented groups have additional skills development. So we've expanded from purely Cisco networking technology to things like IT essentials and cybersecurity, and to train literally millions across the globe, and committed to train millions more. And so just a few examples. One last thing I'll say is around crisis response. We're living in an environment now where there's no shortage of crisis. As we're recording this today and having this conversation, we're facing the wildfires in California, and we're just on the heels of Hurricane Helene, and just so many examples around the globe of natural disasters. And I'm proud that we at Cisco are able to deploy our connectivity resources when there's disasters like that to help provide connectivity to first responders as they're working out there to really save lives and provide services. And so all to say, it's an extensive portfolio of programs that allow us to make maximum positive impact in communities around the globe.
Absolutely. And speaking of communities, I know that to have these programs be really effective, we really have to approach things with a community-led approach, right? So, and this is actually a question for both of you, but essentially talking about community-led impact and the role of tech when it comes to responsible community development. So, Wawira, I'm going to start with you. In your opinion, why is it so important that community leaders are at the forefront of some of these projects that impact their communities directly?
That's a really good question, and I think a value that Food for Education has around like community led impact, but also I've seen from my interaction with Cisco, an organization that's very focused on investing and supporting locally led organizations and community led initiatives. So I'll give the example of, I spoke about we feed 500,000 kids, but when we won the Cisco Youth Leadership Prize, we were feeding about 3,000 kids, if I remember correctly. And Cisco essentially, through the Prize of Global Citizen, took a chance on us. And I remember getting that call that we'd gotten the prize and feeling that it was one of the first times, honestly, that I was being seen, that I was being recognized for the work that we'd been doing, and that $250,000 was a huge investment and continues to be what Cisco, continues to invest in us is so massive. And so having that as a young person, I was under 30, and being trusted with that amount of money really helped push my work and push our work further. And so one thing that I really think when we talk about community-led impact is that seeing leaders and seeing organizations on the ground and investing resources to help them scale the work. So, without that initial investment, we wouldn't be here feeding 500,000 kids every single day. And so that is really what it means to me, is seeing what is happening on the ground and actually putting resources behind it and making sure that it's scaling and it's able to reach those most in need. Because the leaders on the ground know what is the best way to implement impact and to give the right solution. And investing in that is what I think an organization like Cisco is doing really well.
That's great to hear, too, because it's something that we at Cisco talk about a lot about, and I'm going to go to Brian for this, but this idea of being proximate to communities and proximate to each other so that we can really learn about the differences and the challenges that we each have uniquely. And so, Brian, I kind of want to dive a bit deeper on that. And when we're talking about getting proximate to some of these communities that we're serving, how do we ensure that we leverage our technology in a responsible way, that creates social good in these communities that we are actually impacting?
I actually would steal all the words that Wawira just said so well in talking about the way that it's around not being the coming in, they just talk about savior complex, right? We're not flying in from the Silicon Valley with a foregone conclusion of what a specific community needs. We must rely on community partners who are feet on the ground in the communities providing solutions, but also knowing the best uses of the technology to solve the problems that they're trying to solve. And so we take bets. Well, we were said that Cisco took a bet on me. I think we do that extensively through the Cisco Youth Leader Award. That's one vehicle. I know we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like, but also through the investments of our Social Innovation Investments Organization and the Cisco Foundation. It's almost like a venture capital approach in philanthropy. We take bets on usually earlier stage startups with some technology at their core in ways that most corporate foundations may not, because they may not yet have 5 years of track record or have reached critical mass. We'll take a bet based on the credibility of the founder, the innovative nature of the technology. And it's sort of almost like, again, a venture capital approach where we'll take that early stage investment, and then others may see that Cisco has invested, maybe we'll invest as well. And we can help grow capacity to the point where maybe there's an exit. Maybe a nonprofit has grown to critical mass where they don't need our funding anymore, or they've got other big funders, or they've gone private, or they've created other streams of revenue. And so it's about One, just being really proximate to those who know best how to provide solutions. Two, learning from them in ways that we could help apply to others in our ecosystem. And then three, just having that level of trust in the innovative nature of these new technologies.
That's amazing. And you both mentioned Cisco Youth Leadership Award, CYLA. And for anyone, I don't want to gloss over that, because for anyone who's not familiar with that, it's a very incredible award, which Wawira was the first recipient of, by the way. And what it is essentially a joint venture between Cisco and Global Citizen. It's an award that recognizes and supports a young person who is really positively impacting the world through her or his work. So incredible award. Congrats on that. Wawira, I'm very happy to have you on here as the very first recipient. And I want to talk about how winning that award impacted your food for education. So how did it help you scale? And what are some of the challenges you still face when you're trying to expand your reach across Kenya and even just globally?
I think if I said all the ways that the award was helpful, we might be here like all day because, first of all, it was a very surreal experience. I mentioned that, I was in my, I can't remember how old I was, but I was under 30, and to get that level of trust and investment from a global organization like Cisco was such a huge, even for my own self-esteem, a huge sort of sense of affirmation and sense of you can actually do it. And, funding and partnerships like the one we had with Cisco through that prize come in different ways, where you get the resources, but then you also have to reflect internally and be like, why did they give it to me? And then you start believing in yourself and say, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can push forward. And at that time, I mentioned we're feeding 3,000 kids, and the resources in the platform were incredible. So getting to meet the Cisco team, work with the Cisco team on building, for example, what our plan is now of how do we feed kids across the country. But also one of the key things that we learned from Cisco, which we hadn't really ingrained, but we're in the process of thinking about how do we bring technology to the forefront of how we implement school feeding? How do we make it innovative, but also make it tech driven? Because we know the impact of technology is streamlined processes, less food wastage, and kids are able to participate more. So we developed a technology after we got the prize called Tap to Eat. And Tap to Eat is used now across the country by the 500,000 kids that we provide lunch to every single day, and has grown from this like small idea that we didn't really know. I'm not a technology person, but partnering with a tech company was really helpful in starting to work on that. The resources, the team within Cisco. That's why I said we're going to be here all night talking about the impact that the prize had. And, also that didn't just stop, after the 1 year or the 2 years. I've kept relationships with the team. The foundation has continued to support our work. Chuck, for example, who's the CEO of Cisco, is on our US advisory board as Food for Education. And we've kept a relationship with him and Fran and everyone else on the team. So I feel, at some point, I feel like I'm also part of the Cisco team in some way. And I definitely feel part of the family. So it was transformative, and I couldn't speak as much. I can't continue because it was one of the most transformative things in our lives and in our journey. Yeah.
I love that. And I know Brian and I have had conversations in the past about how these, relationships that we build with others, regardless of what the circumstances are, they're really more familial. It's not transactional, right, Brian? It's a real cultivating of relationship building.
Completely agree. Completely agree. You are part of the Cisco family.
Thank you.
Here we go. I want to talk about, you mentioned technology, Wawira, and that's really interesting because, before we actually started recording today, some of us were talking about climate and how it's different where we all are, right, respectively. And climate change, as we know, directly impacts the global food supply. And I know that, when you were doing food for education, employing green technologies was really important to you. So I guess my question would be, what are some of the ways you've been what are some of the ways you've been able to incorporate sustainability into your organization, and are you seeing positive results because of that approach?
I think, sustainability has always been at the forefront of how we deliver school meals. So at the beginning, we were starting to think about, it was just a response. 25 kids need food. Let's provide them with food. So we were using, for example, firewood to cook the meals. And then when we started
Mm,
thinking about scale, we're like, how can we scale a school feeding program that's harming the environment? So we brought in sustainability through green energy, thinking about how do we get, we use briquettes that are compacted from waste collected across Kenya, compacted, and then made into this eco briquettes that allow us to cook the meals that we provide, but also mean that we're not degrading the environment, we're not cutting down trees. School feeding programs across the continent typically run on firewood, and that is,
mm,
impacts the environment. While it's great to provide school lunches, it's also not good to harm the environment. And so that has been a key part of our sustainability journey. So making sure that the 500,000 meals we provide, there is no effect on the environment providing those meals. We're on a goal to scale, to 1 million kids every single day in the next 2 years. And by doing that, we still don't want to invest in degrading the environment and cutting down trees. So that's been one of the things. And, as we talk about climate change, one of the things that I've really been focusing on and we've been really thinking about within the organization is adaptation and sort of climate change impact is different across the world. And in Africa, it really looks at the social piece. So climate change is really impacting food security, as you mentioned, impacting people's ability to go to work, people's ability to get the nutrients, the macronutrients and micronutrients that they need,
mm,
especially children. And so school feeding programs then become a way to adapt to climate change because you're making sure that kids are getting the right meals in school, getting the education that they will need for the future that is coming, that we all need to adapt to, and that the food at school is nutritious enough for them to eat because the food basket at home is becoming smaller because of soaring food prices, but it's also becoming less nutritious because some of the
mm.
more nutritious foods become out of reach for families. And so it's really important for us to invest in making sure that as many kids as possible are getting nutritious meals in school.
That's so important, and it's interesting because some of those issues are faced, all over the globe. Even here in the United States, there are many underserved communities where they don't even have access to nutritious food,
Mhm.
much less food, in general. So that's a really great point. I want to ask both of you, Wawira, I'll stick with you because we're on a roll here, but I want to ask you about partnerships because. In most cases, at least in my experience, for an organization to be successful, it often requires multiple partnerships
Mhm.
and working together with multiple people and agencies to really try to achieve the goals that you've set forth. Um, how have you been able to get multiple partners to come together and work effectively to drive impact for Food for Education?
It's very, very hard to drive impact at the scale that we're at. Even at 25 kids, we needed multiple partners to come and help us to be able to deliver those 25 meals. So you can imagine at the scale of 500,000 every single day. And one of the things that we've really focused on is building partnerships across the board. So we always say like our first partner is the parents because we're partnering with the parents to feed their children. And so they're the ones who are the most invested in their children's nutrition, in their children's well-being. And the second partner that we've really, had good partnerships with is the government. And, when we started, when we won the Cisco Youth Leadership Award, one of the things was, I remember, I'm gonna get the name wrong, but it was one of the people who led government relations Relations, who said, you need to have a strategy around government relations. You need to get the government involved in this. And, that was a key drive for us, thinking about how do we bring the government on board? How do we help them deliver? Because they were interested in school feeding, but we're thinking about how would we be able to deliver this? And so partnerships with government has enabled us to scale our work significantly. We work with county governments, Nairobi and different other counties across the country to deliver on that. And, without donors and without partners like Cisco, we would not be able There's sort of, it's like a stool with a three-legged stool. And we have partners, we have government, and then we have amazing, amazing donors and supporters like Cisco and other philanthropies that support our work. And, getting these partners has been, a testament to our track record in terms of like being able to deliver, but also the impact that every single day, each and every person who supports our work is assured that the child is at the center. This three sort of legged stool is holding up the child, and the child is getting the meals and the nutrition that they need to live up to their potential. So that transparency and that impact narrative has been really important to bring partners on board and also to continue working with them to scale our work.
That's so beautiful. And Brian, I'm really curious, just from our Cisco lens, how does we know the great work that we're helping Wawira do, and I'm just on a general level, how does partnering with Wawira and her incredible organization add to our overall mission at Cisco of powering an inclusive future for all?
I'll say a couple of things. I love the fact that the work that we do can be good for the world, but also good for business, and they're not mutually exclusive. It's not just pure philanthropy. It's supporting organizations that help support our mission. For example, we're always in a fight for the best and brightest talent in a very competitive environment, and our 90,000-ish Cisco team members largely they come to work because they want to work for a company with values that align with their values and gives them opportunities to volunteer in their community and to contribute to causes. And we pride ourselves at being 1, 2, or 3 at the top of the best companies to work for list every year, and that we have really engaged employees. That's important, but it's also important. Well, we were mentioning governments. Those governments are Cisco customers as well, and the work that we do through organizations like Food for Education and others, it's the right thing to do, but it also helps endear ourselves to our customers because we're a trusted partner and we're committed to causes that are close to their hearts as well. And so it's, again, good for the world, good for business. It really aligns with our purpose, and we know that we can't do it alone. We can't execute ourselves around the globe. We've got to work through these partners. We had set this big, ambitious goal back in 2015 to our 2016 timeframe to positively impact 1 billion lives over a decade. And we did that through some of the Net Academy skills development certifications I talked about, but largely it was through partners like Food for Education and others that were out there making changes on a daily basis that positively impacted lives. And so we were able to meet that billion and exceed that billion a year early last year. And so we just announced our next big ambition, because we always have to have some big ambition that drives the work that we do. And we announced in conjunction with the release of our purpose report just about a month ago, our next goal. I mentioned we were just at our 40-year anniversary. And so in conjunction with that, we're announcing a Connected 40 community ambition, where we're going to work to build 40 connected, resilient, thriving communities around the globe to show what could really happen when Cisco shows up in a really deep and meaningful way in a place, in a community, whether it's we've got a campus there or working with partners or building edge centers, whatever that looks like. It allows us to bring the full power of Cisco to bear on a specific community. And as we do that, we're going to work with an even broader set of partners across the globe to help us do that. And so those partnerships are critical for us to be able to do what we set out to do as our mission to power an inclusive future for all.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think you both are really alluding to this idea of trust, which is probably one of the most important things. I want to step away from work for a bit. I know that's probably not possible in your worlds, but let's do it anyway, because you're both incredibly passionate about your respective roles. And I know that when it comes to commitments for work, time seems to disappear because, everyone's very busy. But we just had the holiday season, and now we're into 2025. I can't believe it. It's the new year. So what are some of the non-work activities that you look forward to that help you unwind and kind of recharge yourselves as you approach this new year with enthusiasm? And anyone can go first. No order here.
I'll go first because mine's boring, because I know you're going to outdo me, Wawira. And I'll say this is going to be just a hectic 2025. Sometimes I get tired in advance when I'm looking at my calendar and knowing. And the work that we do is so rewarding. I think we're in a position to be able to positively impact and change lives everywhere we go. So it's all rewarding. In fact, we talked about being on 3 different continents. I'm today in Mumbai, India, where we're doing a number of visits with our nonprofit partners in this area who are doing amazing work around education and critical human needs. And so that's very rewarding in and of itself. But when I'm able to get home, where my home is in rural East Texas, when I'm not on the road, I like to be near a catfish pond or near my chickens on our little ranch that we have out there,
Hey.
and just enjoying the peace and the quiet and being with family. And so nothing big and bold, just kind of, I'm looking forward to some quiet time.
Love that.
Oh, wow. I love that. Catfish and chicken.
Right?
I think, sort of not catfish and chicken, but similar in terms of that quiet time with family. Very, very important to me. And that's something that I really look forward to. I spent, as Brian would probably, is a lot of time traveling.
Yeah.
And so like in December, I got to spend time at home, not traveling, on my couch, watching Netflix, which is also quite boring maybe, but I can tell you like 5 great series to watch now.
Right.
By June, I won't know what's new.
Right.
So one of those things, and I think also I love to move. So sort of like going on walks, doing a lot of outdoor, not a lot, but like a moderate amount of outdoor activity, something that really refreshes me, and also getting to, I love to go on walks and listen to a good podcast. That's one of my favorite things. So I'll be excited to listen to this one. But I'll know everything that's on it. So yeah.
Unless I do some creative editing that you don't know about. But exactly. Yes, you're probably right.
I'll listen in for the surprise editing.
There you go. And some sound effects. That's great. I can relate to both of you. And I think this outdoors appreciation is something that I can certainly understand. And by the way, I want to go back to that catfish and chicken. That actually sounds like a really good restaurant chain. We should start that. But we can talk about that on the next conversation.
We don't eat the chickens; they're just egg layers. But that is a good.
Oh, okay, all right.
That would be a good name.
Well, on
it's
that
a good
note,
name.
Yeah, it's a great name. Listen, okay, if I do start one, it's gonna be 33% ish.
There you go. Right.
We're good to go. So yeah, I got to tell you, on that culinary note, I think it's a great time to bring the conversation to a close. I've had such a great time having both of you on this episode, and I really do again appreciate your giving your time. I know schedules are crazy, so thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Me too.
You got it.
Thank
and
you.
We'll see you hopefully in person in the future. So take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. And see you soon.